try to relax. I know you're very excited, but like you don't need to be jumping up and down. Okay? We're good? Hi, good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Thanks for coming. This is Dragon Spitting Fire, Poetry for Political Prisoners. My name is Jorge Chang. I'm a member of New York City Jericho, as well as National Jericho. I've got a co-MC here. He'll introduce himself.
Hi, my name's Leonard, and this is my first time. This is my first time hosting something like an event like this, so I'm pretty excited.
All right. So for folks who don't know, New York City Jericho is an organization that supports and advocates for the freedom of political prisoners in the U.S. That work looks like, oftentimes looks like solidarity efforts where we're bringing awareness to these political prisoners, as well as food packages. We're working on their medical campaigns, working on their parole campaigns. So a lot of these political prisoners are folks from movements of the 60s and 70s, as well as some more recent political prisoners. A lot of the folks are from organizations such as the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, AIM, and the anti-imperial organizations. So we've got a pretty awesome lineup today with a number of different poets, and we're very excited to hear their spoken word. We've got Sister Nzinga, and we'll also have a video of Mando Langa reciting his own poetry. We'll have Rafael Landrón, a New York poet, as well as Kasise Siddiqui, daughter of political prisoner and former Panther Kamau Siddiqui and Pam Hanna. And then we also have Professor Louie, who will be sharing his poetry as well.
To kick things off, we have Sister Nzinga. She has a long resume, including, but not limited to, being a high school assistant principal, educator, mentor, playwright, and poet at Operation Power, and is a contributing poet on What's Happening Now Blog Talk Radio with Ralph Pointer. She's also a program director with the Social Justice Network and adjunct professor at Brooklyn College. Please join me to welcome Sister Nzinga.
So, thank you for inviting me here today. It's always a pleasure, and thank you. And I'm in the midst of giants, right? So my poem today is titled Hard to Respect. And, it comes from a place where, just with everything that's going on today, here and everywhere, it was just a way for me to express some of what I am feeling about what's happening. So hard to respect. It is hard for me to respect a system of government that engages in crooked politics, that filters drugs and weapons in my community, and arrests and murders Black men, women, and children persistently, that uses mass incarceration and racial bias as a means to keep Black people oppressed. A system of government that imprisons and slays individuals for merely trying to uplift their people from the mental chains of slavery, economic injustice, and poverty. One that makes light of serious issues like education, health, and safety in our schools, and spends taxpayers' money on weapons for war instead of feeding the homeless instead of housing the homeless and feeding the poor. That incriminates Black youth for petty crimes and offenses, makes them serve years behind bars, then gives them a lifetime criminal record. Yet they armor, protect, and equip young white teens who unlawfully commit crimes that target and kill the innocent. And they dare utter the words, Black Lives Matter, as if they really care, then paint the phrase on streets, subways, and highways. Yet they fail to comprehend that the real emotions from which those words stem from centuries of grief, sorrow, and pain from the evil and injustice Black people have sustained. So it's hard for me to respect their system of government. Then they try to patronize. Oh, please, don't bother. I don't want the crumbs you offer. A Supreme Court justice, an anti-lynching bill. They never even prosecuted those responsible for killing Emmett Till. Besides which, both of those acts were legislated decades after the fact. A real true testament of their failure to relate to the misery, sorrow, and hurt they create with their undesirable system of capitalism, colonialism, racism, and hate. Another testament to their true sentiment regarding Black people in this nation is the fact that we still have not received our reparations. But their racial hatred and insatiable greed and the forked tongue from which they speak, their wicked ways and their lies will ultimately lead to the demise of their so-called republic and their democracy, which was never intended to be a place where a Black man or woman would ever be free. Therefore, I find it hard to respect their system of government.
Thank you, Sister Nzinga. Wonderful. So next up, we actually have a video of political prisoner and ancestor Manda Wilanga reading two of his poems. For those who don't know, Manda was a political prisoner. He transitioned in March 11th, 2016 at the maximum security Nebraska State Penitentiary. He suffered from respiratory failure after 45 long years in prison for a crime he denied, the murder of a Omaha police officer. Mondo was targeted along with fellow inmate Ed Poindexter by the FBI because of their affiliation with the Black Panther Party. Convicted after a controversial trial in 1971 that was marred with withheld and tampered evidence, and also conflicting police testimony, the men became known as the Omaha Two. Mondo stayed engaged in the outside world, commenting on current events with essays and poetry. And then 2 weeks before his death, Mano mailed out a poem titled "When It Gets to the Point," about the shooting of unarmed Black men around the country. And that's presented in the little zine that we have shared with you guys. But we have those two poems that we'll be running the video on for Mondo.
Called Washington Redskins. I'd like to share this. This is entitled Signs of the Tribes. I did this some years ago, but now it's back in the news. Anything I can do to try to help get rid of that nonsense, because it bugs me that you have Africans, and again, I'm talking about people of African heritage, who are like on ESPN and other sports things, who speak in such a cavalier fashion about Washington Redskins. You have football players, and my question is this: if you're a football player and you look like me, how can you be so comfortable playing for a team called the Washington Redskins? Or if you're another athlete playing for the Cleveland Indians and you got people doing a tomahawk chop and all that kind of stuff. What if it were the Cleveland Coons or the Baltimore Darkies? Would you be so cavalier about this? So anyway, this is called Signs of the Tribes. Smiling engines showing pearly whites looking shifty and wide-eyed caricature. With a single feather sticking up from the back of his head, a band holding it in place, he stuck to the plastic cap of a boy of summer playing hit the ball and run the bases. Before a sea of mostly pale faces and arms moving up and down in a tomahawk choppy motion to the helter-skelter rhythm of balls and strikes, runs, outs, and errors, but an error is a mistake. The trail of tears and wounded knee were not events that the children of Plymouth Rock and Valley Forge did not mean to do. They meant it, and weren't sorry for even as long as it takes to blink an eye or steal first, second, or third. They stole home, called this Pilgrim's Progress, pioneer spirit, taming the frontier and other turns of phrases to cover the trail of murders and thefts they lay on the road to today, where the logos and mascots of their fun and games mock the people they considered fair prey. Or the land of the free, and Atlanta's the home of the Braves, but they and Cleveland Indians and Washington Redskins cannot speak for themselves, because decals and mascots can't talk, and Leonard Peltier like me can't run free, but must walk, pacing back and forth in a cage of history, repeating itself. And I, being foreign to this place, could ignore these signs of the tribes, but for the thought in my head that little black Sambos turned red. These are the rap of mine, rap atmospheric conditions. Who am I, you ask? I am your friendly neighborhood host, holding down my post at the Midwest coast. Chillerating in the relaxercise. Now I understand that it could get hot, but don't be scared. You might get toasted, but you won't get roasted. And you can be excused for being confused. You heard too about Newton and the Panthers from Oakland to Carolina. Huey? No, damn, they talking about Cam. Huey had a shotgun. They say Cam got a cannon. Bam. Has some super geek been hacking into a time machine, thrown all the clocks into a PlayStation or an Xbox? No Malcolm there. Computers got memories, and we don't. Smartphones, a Kardashian on the ringtone. I hope you're not dumb enough to call that number, because Bob might try to sponge off you to get some square pants. To do romance on the internet, maybe find someone from Albany, New York, claiming to be from France, twerking for him on Skype with butt implants. Pardon the commercial break. CNN, the most crusted name in airing the same breaking news for hours and hours. I say, once you know the news is broke, fix it. In the meantime, if you're dark like me or got a pet moose, look out, because Sarah Paleskin is on the loose, goose-stepping with her psychotic friends coming from a tea party. I'm not talking Boston Harbor, but Wonderland, where Alice was. with the Mad Hatter holding court and mad chatter coming forth from Sarah, Ted Cruz, and these other paranoid freaks spitting right-wing propaganda and singing their red, white, and blues. And it gets so crazy these days, you can get seasick standing still and knocked over if you're standing alone, but if we're going to make some moves, not wait in line, I got your back. I hope you got mine.
So that video was very amazing, and I liked it a lot. And now it's time to move on to the next poet. Rafael Landrón is a poet, cultural worker, and educator. He has created art to help nurture the movement to free the Puerto Rican political prisoners through his work with Pro Libertad. He believes in the power of art as a cultural weapon to transform society. Please give a warm round of applause to welcome Rafael.
Hello, everyone. All right, thank you. And it's my honor and pleasure to perform and to be participating in this activity. Thank you. The poem I'm going to read is called In Honor of the Freedom Struggle. For those who chose to fight the system, all praise for your courage. All praise for your unrelenting spirit. All praise for your undeniable love. Say it with me. Leonard Peltier. Thank you. Mumia Abu Jamal. Thank you. Jamil Abdullah Alamin. Thank you. Oscar Lopez Rivera. Thank you. Sundiata Kohli. Thank you. And these are just a few. Thank you for your principles. Thank you for your spirit of justice. Thank you for your actions, choice, sacrifice for our freedom. You beautiful love warriors, thank you. Thank you for choosing bravely, for standing up for justice. Thank you for lifting the truth in times of darkness. Your spirits are free. Your minds are free. I celebrate the victory of your spirit, love, existence. We honor you by saying your name. Russell Schultz. Presente. Asada Shakur. Presente. In exile, you are free. Victory for standing up for liberation. Victory for taking on colonialism. Victory for taking on pigs, patriarchy, and violence against the poor. Victory for taking on capitalism and racism. Victory for taking on the systems of oppression. We cherish and honor you. We love and remember you. Ana Belén, thank you for your love of humanity. The people of Cuba honor you. Leonard and Rafael Cancel Miranda, thank you for your brave teachers. Your legacy lives on. Wherever there's a hungry child, your spirit of resistance are there. Wherever you have suffering, your spirit shines through. The earth recognizes your contribution. On the wind, love, sound, we hear your plea to stand up wherever we are. To stand up in dignity. This is what you collectively have taught us by your example. Thank you. From the Sierra Maestra to the urban dwellings where the fight continues, from the streets of our African diaspora, your examples run at least 500 years in this beautiful, fierce struggle that you have engaged and that we have benefited. In keeping our cultures, languages alive, love of the people has nurtured your beautiful spirits. Thank you. From the movements of Black liberation you came. From a long legacy of resistance, from Palestine to Puerto Rico, your legacies live on. From the mountains of the Lacandan forest to the streets of Jamaica, Queens, your lives are recognized and your contributions spoken. From Philadelphia to Boyle Heights, your examples shine through. Panthers, Lords, movement people, American Indian movement, women's liberation, brown berets, Red Guard, Asian warriors, SNCC, FALN, the Weathermen, BLA, Black liberations, your actions have shaped our present. Thank you for your fight against colonialism, theft and conquest. Your lives live on in us. in the continuous struggle of our present moment. Thank you. Victory in Ferguson. Victory in La Sierra Maestra. Victory in Staten Island against Amazon. Victory in Vietnam. Victory in Harlem. Victory in Chiapas, Mexico. Victory in Los Angeles. Your rebellion was heard. Victory in Attica. Victory in South Africa, dealing a blow to apartheid. Victory in Lattice. Victory in Stonewall. Victory in Selma. We won't stop till we all are free. Thank you again.
Rafael Landrón, thank you. Thank you for saying their names. Thank you for calling them here. And thank you for recognizing those victories. So very powerful. We appreciate you bringing that to this space. Next up, we've got Kasise Siddiqui. She is a filmmaker, performance artist, and Panther Cub. Her father is Kamal Siddiqui, a political prisoner, currently imprisoned at Augusta State Medical Prison in Georgia, and her mom is Pam Hanna, a member of the Black Panther Party. Kasise will be sharing a monologue.
It's an improv monologue.
All right.
Reflections of my years.
We'll keep it loose. And she'll also provide an update on her health and campaign. Here's good.
He's gonna cue. I'm just supposed to do. Yeah, it's just a. Do that as an intro because I'm a 70s child, so I just wanted to warm y'all up. Because everything that's going on is so serious, you know. I always say we gotta wake up our bodies, wake up our bodies, wake up our bodies, and move them around. Yeah. The last time I was here, it was for Seth's memorial. Right. That was in March 2020. In January 2020 was the last time I did my performance. And I remember when I stood up in front of the stage, and the last thing I said is, "What's the call? Freedom Wall." And I held my hand up high, and I knew that I was advocating for my parents. But what I didn't know, because the Creator has plans for us, is that I'd be advocating for my parents for real. And what that means is that during the pandemic, I experienced the most devastating thing. Both parents, my mother and my father, having serious wounds. This is more like a testimony, a moment for me to get back on stage and share what it's like to be the daughter of a political prisoner and Black Panther, both being elders and both being in need of health care and the wound care. And so, me being the daughter of revolutionaries, I had to step up and be on the front line for real. Be on the front line there in the hospitals, dealing with Medicaid, and trying to protect my mother because I almost lost my mom. And so right now, it's my moment here. It's just the beginning of the next step of my performance. I want to talk a little bit about my father, Kamal Siddiqui. Kamal Siddiqui, as you know, and there's material from Kamal Siddiqui, has been suffering with negligence and caring for himself. He's been dealing with his own wounds. And when I first started my play, he had these wounds, and it's now 2022, and the wounds are still there. And so when I say, what's the call? Free them all. And what are we gonna do? Right now, we do have a campaign for him, and I'm so proud. And I actually put that out there in the universe too, and also with the guidance of Chef and Brother Tony. Yeah. But when I asked to have a campaign for my father, to bring him home. And now, as Ann knows, the steering committee is right now in Philly strategizing to bring him home. So I don't really have a lot to say right now. I don't really have a lot to say, and I'm just getting on the stage and warming up, and I'm going to continue my play. But I just want to bring awareness to healthcare, awareness to not for our people making so many sacrifices that we don't take care of ourselves. Not only do we have a corrupted medical system, but we also have manifested our own wounds. And it's short as an example of my mother, a Black Panther who was taken on since the beginning, since she was 14 years old, responsibilities for our communities, but neglecting herself. And so my movement, my dance is a way to say, it's spring. We have to regenerate, revive ourselves. So that's my little.
Wow, that was very inspiring and it was amazing. And now we have to move on to Professor Louie. Professor Louie has been doing poetry ever since he could speak. He has educated, and entertained many people over the years and currently performs every Tuesday night on What's Happening with Ralph Pointer on Blog Talk Radio. Please welcome Professor Louie.
It works. May we all have the grace to think about race, to put it in place, look it right in the face. I don't got the space to trace the full case, but who made up the idea? And is it new that I'm completely different from you? If I got dark eyes and you got blue, no one says boo, and it's true. Some got blonde hair, some got brown. It don't keep nobody from coming around, but how to begin to check out the shape we're in on account of different color skin, health, housing, jobs, education, who owns the plantation, who gets the frustration, and which formation gets to run the nation. Racism might not be wise, but it buys and decides who lives or dies. A rich mixed couple has a mixed race baby. Woman in Harlem has a black baby. Both babies are one half white. Two babies' opportunities like day and night. For the Harlem baby, there is no maybe. He could say he's mixed till he goes crazy because he looks like Jay-Z. The mixed race baby's not to blame. He looks exactly the same. He's going Ivy League and got a claim to fame. And some white people are out the park because they're way more dark than light-skinned black people who carry the mark of being black. When it's a fact, if you look their way, There's darker white people every day, and that dark Latino guy. Tell me why. He's either Hispanic or black. White Mexican guy is always sent back. His kid speaks English, so he could be white. He's Roberto, but Robert makes him light and keeps him out of fights. Information not in your graduation. Africa got white people to the 5th generation. What's the formulation of his designation? If he's not African, what is his nation? Lions and tigers are both big cats, but they can't make babies, and that's that. No black and orange lions, that's a fact. But Anglo-Saxons and Africans make it together. Chinese and Eskimos make babies forever, because human beings are just one species. Nephews and nieces, same smelly feces. We're not divided up like Reese's Pieces. There are 2 kids in my own family. You can't define them easily. They are 1/4 Nepalese, more or less Indian, 1/4 Anglo-Saxon by way of Ireland. 1/4 of them comes from Peru. The last 1/4 Ashkenazi Jew. When the census comes, what the heck? Don't break your neck. Which freaking box are these kids gonna check? Don't need a book to look. It's smack in your face. There is only one human race, but racism got a different story. It was made up for the glory of one over another, for one to breathe and the other to smother. Right now, today, in the USA, you're either white or black. You hear come in or you hear get back. White gets the cocaine, black gets the crack. Try to avoid it with all your might. Here, you're either black or white, because white people made it up long ago. So they made white up high and black down low, from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration. The continuation of the situation passed through the generations right from the jump. You're a champ or a chump. It rolls right on with Donald Trump. And when white working people get kicked around, we're told it's the fault of the black and the brown, when it's the super rich white guy holding us down. So it's good to know, wherever we go, race is a made-up thing. It's not something solid you bring like your ding-a-ling you could feel for real. It's a load of crap. Racism, we got to deal with wherever we're at. That guy on the street, how'd you know? He comes from Africa when no one said so. Head to toe, he's darker than black people you see every day. Did you think about that, or just leave it lay, or do you pray? It all goes away. And if black people here got some white in them, do white people here got some black in them? And did white slave owners make it with African women? We know it happened. Not at a minimum. It's not an act. It's a stone cold fact. That's what Thomas Jefferson did. This guy owned people who were his own kids. Did he take a sample of his own example? Or was he tripping on NyQuil when he wrote the sequel? All men are created equal. The darkest people on this earth, dark from birth. They're from the bottom of Africa. For what it's worth, go north to Ethiopia. You don't got myopia, walk in the park. People there are a little less dark. Further north, you get Egyptians. Their descriptions, they're brown people with some exceptions. That's their complexions. A little more north, Sicilians and Greeks, dark with curly hair. Even the geeks and even the freaks all the way north. You get the Swede, blonde hair, blue eyes, super light indeed. It all goes gradual, from hot to cold. You could look till you get old, search day and night. There's no clear line between black and white. So race is made up to make you pay. But no matter what you say, racism does not go away. Race is bullshit through and through. Racism, we got to deal with, both me and you. And may we have the grace to think about race, to put it in place, look it right in the face. I didn't have the space to trace the full case, but I tried to say something about race.
Professor Louie, quite a wordsmith there. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we have we have a sort of a surprise poet who will be sharing. I believe her name is Natalia from Feminist Revolution. I believe she was going to share a poem with us, and I think she's also got some literature. So if anyone is interested, do check it out. Natalia.
I should say briefly that every time I read this poem, I get a little emotional, so forgive me. This is a poem that was written about a woman named Ms. Moon. She was a member of a guerrilla group called the Symbionese Liberation Army, and in May of 1974, she and 5 of her comrades died heroically in combat in Los Angeles, California. The poem was written by somebody, we don't know who, before she died, and it's called For Ms. Moon, from his son. Ms. Moon, a sister who loves you is speaking. You and I live Berkeley lives so much alike that I often ask myself, what kept me here? What pulled you where you are? I'm who you've been and where you came from, living in the neighborhood, taking care of kids, working for a living, 5 political meetings a week, some studying, some demonstrations, and some good times with the women and men I love. I want you to loan me a book you probably don't remember. It says that your gift to me has been Betty. I have a memory of you that sticks in my mind. A year ago at a meeting, someone asked you, why the name Ms. Moon? And you said, my lover was speaking poetry to me and called me Ms. Moon. It seemed perfect for my name. I really like the way you said that. The way you chose your new self, the way we each will, a bold transformation, defined definition, letting yourself be named by a woman who loves you. Ms. Moon, listen. Excuse me. Don't believe those who say you're separate from the people because you came right out of our lives. Ms. Moon, listen. Don't deny your past because it's our present. There was good in everything we ever were. There had to be, for you created yourself out of our common past. Bring us along with you and remember everything you've ever learned. You are my future. Show me what I can do, but remember what I'm doing now. And Ms. Moon, listen. Even though it seems like there are only a few of us who are armed, remember that there are hardly any non-combatants left now. Most of the people are fighting back in some small way every day. And Ms. Moon, thank you. You've begun to claim what is ours. The robber barons have stolen and stolen and stolen from us. Wealth and food and work and sex and land and life. You've taken back a little food for empty bellies and a little cash for the survival of a part of our army. For this beginning, thanks, Ms. Moon. Ms. Moon, a sister who loves you is speaking. What I want to give you is the unconditional love of one revolutionary for another. It's unconditional love that America can never give its children, and it's unconditional love that we need and must give to each other. No matter what happens, I love you. If you survive and fight for years until victory, I love you. If you are captured, wounded, imprisoned, tortured, I love you. If you are duped and tricked, infiltrated and led to defeat, I love you. If you die a violent death under the guns of the enemy, I love you. If you make more bad mistakes, fail, and do us all harm, I'll know that you've tried and lost like many others. Not yet wise enough, not yet loving enough. I'll struggle with you, I'll criticize you, but I will never deny you. For you are of me, and I am of you. Women in struggle. The poem is available in the magazine, and it's over on the table. Okay, thank you.
I probably do need an introduction, but I was just teasing Jorge, saying he wasn't going to introduce me. What was that all about? Anyway, my name is Ann. I work with the New York City chapter of the Jericho movement, as well as part of National Jericho, among other things. Also part of the international campaign to free Kamal Siddiqui, because this is dad, who is an amazing human being. And, you know, as all our political prisoners are, you know, we were talking about them earlier today in the meeting, because I was attending that on the Zoom. And, you know, we were saying these are, you know, because people like to say somebody's an icon, their picture on the wall. And we were saying, no, these are ordinary human beings doing extraordinary things in a society that does not want people to do those kinds of things. So I got all emotional listening to all of this today. But I'm supposed to talk about Leonard Peltier and Mumia Abu-Jamal. So their cases, although different, are very similar because, you know, they were both convicted of crimes that they did not commit. They're both totally innocent. They're both still sitting in prison, right? And the only difference is that Leonard is in the feds and Mumia is in Pennsylvania, as far as that goes, you know? So there was Leonard Peltier way back in 1975. There was a whole reign of terror, as it is called, going on the Pine Ridge Reservation, which was all run by the so-called tribal chairman, who was the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs trial chairman, Dickie Wilson. Dickie Wilson had formed a whole bunch of people who were called the Goons. That's where we get the Goon Squad from, right? Guardians of the Oglala Nation. And their whole purpose in life was to go out and shoot and kill people, especially elders and especially traditionalists. So that's how AIM even came to be there on June 26, 1975, because the elders and the traditional people, including Grandma Jumping Bull, asked them to come to help defend them against this horrible, horrible, you know, genocide that was going on. And the U.S. government wasn't doing anything about it. And of course, the traditionalists didn't want the U.S. government to do anything about it. They wanted their own people to do it. So that was, they were there. And in a classic, real classic COINTELPRO military operation, you know, these FBI agents come onto the res, which is not their land, that's sovereign nation, right? Supposedly pursuing a kid who had stolen a pair of cowboy boots, all right? Now this somehow morphs over time into, you know, a whole other story, right? But that's what they were originally there to do, supposedly. That was the excuse for them being there. So they opened fire on people, and people returned fire, which is their right to do. They were defending themselves. And these two guys ended up getting killed. Now, we had Leonard and Bob Robidoux and Dino Butler and other folk who were there, managed to get away. They escaped the whole, you know, encirclement, a military encirclement of FBI and, you know, cops. And they say they were guided by an eagle, and I tend to believe that they probably were. And anyway, Bob and Dino were tried because they were here in the States, and these are Leonard's co-defendants, okay? And they were convicted, they were not convicted, they were acquitted on the grounds of self-defense, which, you know, is easily provable. So then the FBI, which is still doing this thing, decided, okay, somebody's got to pay. So there's all kinds of irregularities going on in order for them to get Leonard, who at that time was in Canada. They had false affidavits from this poor woman, Myrtle Poorbear, who they coerced and threatened and said they were going to take her children away if she didn't say what they wanted them to say. There were some young kids who were teenagers at the time who were also coerced into saying things that were not true. Anyway, so Leonard comes back, captured February 6, 1976. And here we are in 2022. And the man is still in prison for something that the whole world knows he didn't do. So, you know, it's pretty amazing to think about the level of all the things that everybody was talking about. This is how it plays out on an individual level, somebody's life. It's his dad's life, her mom's life, Tariq's life. I forgot to say, Tariq is one of our former political prisoners, and we're very happy to have him with us. Yay, Tariq. Just in the middle of all that. Tariq actually did time with Leonard Peltier. So, he knows him pretty well. So now Leonard is 77 years old, right? He's not well. We know he has an aortic aneurysm. He has diabetes. He possibly has a heart murmur. All kinds of things like this. So if you look at our elder prisoners, most of them should have been released according to the BOP's own COVID, protocols. They're elders, they have pre-existing conditions, so on and so forth. They should not be in prison. But of course, when you're a political prisoner, that all goes out the window. So Leonard recently, of course, got COVID. And luckily, he did recover, even though they did not do anything whatsoever for him. And interestingly, this young woman journalist named Jennifer Bendery, she's been writing very regularly in the Huffington Post about Leonard. She's spoken with Leonard. So shortly before he got the COVID, he was telling her, we're all asking where are our booster shots, because he's in like what they call a senior citizen prison in this complex. And nobody had gotten their booster shots. And then the next thing you know, he was mad sick, and nobody knew what was going on. So in the meantime, really thanks to the very persistent and insistent and consistent efforts of thousands and thousands of Native American people in this country and in other countries, indigenous peoples have consistently been pushing, free this man, free this man, free this man. We had, how many presidents didn't deny this, going back to Clinton, right? So there was a lot of people who, said, oh, Clinton practically promised Leonard's family he was going to let him go. And then he didn't do it, right? Obama didn't do it. I don't even bother to think about if Trump would have done it, right? So now we're at the point where we're asking Biden to do it. And the only good thing about all of this is that because of the persistence of the grassroots movements who have been pushing this for so many years and including it in all their other demands, while they're fighting gas pipelines and everything else and water, contamination, everybody's been saying, and free Leonard Peltier. So now the senators and the representatives who supposedly represent these people have said, oh shit, we got to say something now, right? So they've been putting pressure on Biden, which is good to see. And interestingly, going back to Jennifer Bendery, because I found this extremely interesting, Jennifer Bendery, young journalist, decided she was going to ask the pardon attorney, like, what's the status of the clemency petition? So she sends an email to the pardon attorney and gets a response from the FBI. All right, now this is interesting because what is the level of collusion there, right? We could wonder about that. But also, she had been trying to get the FBI to say something for the longest time, and they had refused. So they came up with all their same old lies and fairy tales. He's unrepentant. That was a heinous crime. He killed these guys in cold blood, all of which has been proven not to be true. The former prosecutor is asking for Leonard to be released. Judges who sat on his case are asking Leonard to be released. So this is not, we're not asking Leonard to be released. We're demanding that Leonard be released. This is ridiculous. And you look at this man's life, since he was young, and now he's 77 years old, and he himself says, I am tired. I just want to come home. I want to walk on the grass. I want to see the sun. I want to hug my grandchildren, and everybody feels that way. We know that. That's how everybody feels, and everybody wants to come home. And there's no reason for them not to come home. The same thing now with Mumia. Mumia's been in prison for 41 years. It'll be 41 years, July 3rd, since he was convicted, right? And that's another point that everybody knows. The man did not commit the crime. They have no real evidence against either one of them. It was all concocted and coerced. The same in the case of Kamal. Kamal Siddiqui that was completely false. The only reason they did that to Kamal is because they wanted him to betray the mother of one of his children, Asada Shakur, and he refused to do it because he's a principled human being, and he was not going to betray a comrade, regardless of whether she was the mother of his daughter or not. I'm sure if she was not, he still wouldn't have done it. Nobody would, who has principles. So, that's real serious stuff that goes on with our political prisoners. So Mumia, who's been in prison since forever, was on death row for the longest time, We beat that back twice, in 1995 and in 1997, 2 separate death warrants. And he was tried by this horrible judge, Judge Albert Sabo, also known as the prosecutor in robes. He sent 32 people to death row, 32 people, and Mumia is one of them. All right, so, you know, in between all the courts and the Supreme Court people in Pennsylvania who were formerly prosecutors and so on and so forth, they have been sitting on this thing because this is to them like, we cannot open this can of worms. You know, like if we come out with who really killed Officer Daniel Faulkner, you know, we gotta cover this up. And they've been covering up and covering up and covering up and delaying everything and delaying everything and delaying everything. Because of course what they hope will happen, not only with Leonard, not only with Mumia, but with all of our prisoners, they want them all to die in prison. You know, that's very clear. We know what they're about, you know, and God forbid that anybody should stand up to this system in any way, shape, or form. And that includes even us out here just talking nowadays, could be extremely dangerous. But we need to do it because it's the right thing to do. So here's Mumia, all these years. He's also ill, had hepatitis C, right? Has now cirrhosis of the liver because of how long it took for them to treat the hepatitis C, had a triple bypass, right? And also has this horrible, horrible skin condition where they have to give him some kind of ultraviolet light. Recently, they stopped doing this for a while, and it came back, so that was one of the demands everybody was making, you know, calling up there and saying, give him back the treatment, which they did do. So now he has a new appeal going, which seems old, because it is old. Because in Pennsylvania, you can only do one appeal at a time. Now, it's probably true in most places. But they found many moons ago, well, not all that many, but a few years ago, 6 boxes of evidence that was in a closet somewhere, you know, in the DA's office. Larry Krasner actually found these boxes, not that he's our friend, and they're marked, you know, box such and such, and they say of 33. So we have 6. We don't know where the other, you know, where the rest of them are. But even with that, there's a whole bunch of evidence of prosecutorial misconduct. Their lead witness is asking, where's my money, right? So, yeah, we got that in writing. So, you know, you could see that there's all kinds of ways to try to, you know, get this in front of a court, because most of the stuff that we know has never been in front of a court, has never been heard by a judge or a jury, you know? So, you know, all these things that have been debunked over the years, the fact that he even shot this cop, which we know is not true. We have photographs that prove it, you know, that disappeared. So here's the lead, you know, their lead witness saying, where's my money? And in writing to the prosecutor is probably just one thing. But he does have a court date coming up, starting on this appeal. That'll be June 29th. June 29th, down at 13th and Filbert. I'm sure we will be outside. We always are. You know, to show our support for Mumia. And it's been a long, long time, but, you know, we got to keep it up. You know, we got to keep fighting. That's what we do, you know. I've been doing this for a long, long time myself, and I'm not about to stop tomorrow. You know, it's like, okay, we still need to get out Leonard, we need to get out Mumia, we need to get out Matula, we need to get out Sundiata, we need to get out Baranza, we need to get out Kamal, we need to get out, you know, so many people who have sacrificed so much of their lives. You know, really, I mean, I loved your poem, Rafael, because that was just bringing me to tears. Yeah, this is what it is, you know, I mean, if you dare to stand up against this system, this is what they want to tell you. This is what's going to happen to you. You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. You're going to be on death row, you know, whatever, you know. And that's a way to scare other people. Then people say, oh, shit, you know, what if I step up to the plate? What are they going to do to me, right? So, you know, that's something my friend Paulette, who has been doing this for many, many years as well, has always said. The more of us who stand together against the system, the less afraid we're all going to be, and the more likely that we're going to succeed. Because if we don't have unity in principle against this system, you know, this is the most horrible, disgusting, as my friends in the MOVE organization say, rotten-ass system that we could possibly be living under. And, you know, if we're not fighting against it, I don't know what we would be doing here. And I know that everybody here is fighting against this system and has been. And one of the things I was saying earlier to Jorge is, this really shows that there's an intergenerational struggle going on here. We have a 10-year-old co-MC, right? Which was great. I personally am 66. Ralph and Betty were supposed to be here. They're probably delayed. Oh, they are here. Oh, good. I'm sorry I didn't see you. Ralph and Betty? Yeah. What we do without Ralph and Betty. They are so inspiring and wonderful. And I am so glad to see you. I'm sorry I hadn't looked that way. So, Ralph and Betty have been inspirational mentors to me. And so you have Ralph and Betty. Ralph is in his 80s. You got me, I'm in my 60s. I'm sure some people here are in their 70s. Some are in their 50s, their 40s, their 30s. And then we have Leonard, who is named for Leonard Peltier, by the way. Yes. So it shows, this is what it is. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon, as we say. It's a long-distance marathon. They don't call me the long-distance revolutionary for nothing. This is not something that's going to end next week. It's not, it's not something trendy. We're not doing it because it's popular. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. We cannot forget our comrades behind the walls, because what if I was behind the walls tomorrow and everybody forgot me? I would not feel good about that, right? We can't leave anybody behind. That's something I was always taught. You leave nobody behind, in any kind of confrontation. You have to bring everybody home. So that's what we're trying to do. And I'll go back to what you said before. What's the call? Free them all. So let's do it, man.
Thank you for the political prisoner updates, Anne. We've come to the end of our program, Dragon Spitting Fire, Poetry for Political Prisoner. We want to thank you all for coming and hope you enjoyed the beautiful and powerful poetry and culture from all the artists. Please give them another round of applause. Have a great evening and stay safe. Let's free the land and free them all.